What's up, everyone, and welcome to Clear Talk. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the UN Assembly that happened today, a General Assembly that they had their first major sessions apparently since the war started in Gaza, really. So we're going to look over some of the results from that. I also just going to kind of update in general all the stuff going on in the Middle East and stuff. So, but before we do that, thank you very much for joining. Consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think about what's going on in the world today and all that good stuff. So, um, and check out my other channels if you would like. JMD Drummer is my drum channel. JMDPLAY is my video game channel. Of course, you're here on Clear Talk, and then you can also check out the discourse right there if you want to do a one-time donation or whatever. You can do it right there, and then of course Patreon up there if you want to do $3 a month for the JMD Nation on Patreon. Check that out. All right, so we had let me swap over here. Bop, 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 bop. All right, here we go. So yeah, we have today we had the major like UN General Assembly happen. All the major leaders in the world were there, including Biden. He gave his little talk as well, including, yeah, I mean, Iran's new president. This was the first time he, I think, has been able to attend one of these. So there was a lot of eyes on this. A lot of people looking at it. We have this article here from Politico, and it says, okay, so a number of world leaders sharply condemned Israel. That's the headline, pretty much. World leaders voice frustration at Israel and the U.S. as violence mounts in the Middle East. So, yes, a number of world leaders sharply condemned Israel and, by extension, the U.S. On Tuesday, as the UN General Assembly held its first major session since the war in Gaza began nearly a year ago. And at least one used a Hitler comparison. That's right. So a tough language reflection reflected global frustration over the unwillingness of the parties involved to strike a ceasefire. It also spoke to international despair over the helplessness of institutions such as United Nations to bring about peace. Virtually all the world leaders who took the lectern Tuesday called for an end to the fight between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, and as well as on the increasingly violent Israel-Lebanon front, where the Israelis are battling Hezbollah. While some other While some also acknowledge Hamas militants launched the war by killing some 1,200 people in Israel on October 7th, the general sense was that Israel has gone too far in its retaliation. It's what we've been talking about this whole time. Arab and Middle Eastern leaders who have been critical of Israel were among Tuesday's speakers, but the frustration even came from some nations that usually avoid the topic, including Latin America and African states. The rhetoric is especially intense when directed at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Turkish I'm sorry, President Recep uh, Erdogan, okay, he's the one that compared the Israeli leader to Adolf Hitler, even suggesting other countries should unite to stop the Israelis by force if needed. Others, such as Colombia's Gustavo Petro, called the violence as genocide against Palestinians. Terms like war crimes and settler colonialism were thrown around liberally, as they should be. When began as a terrorist attack, I'm sorry, what began as a terrorist action has become a collective punishment for the entire Palestinian people, said Brazilian President Lula da Silva, the first speaker at the General Assembly. The right of defense has become a right of vengeance. Very well put. Much of the anger was also directed at the United States, though the world leaders rarely directly mentioned America. The presidents of the countries of human destruction are laughing in these very corridors, said Pedro, aiming his ire at the global 1%. When Gaza dies, humanity will die. The people of God were not the people of Israel, it would seem. It's not the people of the USA. Hello. Biden, for his part, called for a two-state solution, highlighting a U.S.-backed proposal for a ceasefire and hostage exchange. Blah. Come on, Biden. Of course he would. He called on all parties to finalize terms, ease the suffering in Gaza, and end this war, he said, to an applause from the General Assembly floor. See, it's the same old thing. He keeps saying the same shit over and over again about two-state solution and the proposed ceasefire, which they have completely just given up on. There's no ceasefire talks going on right now. It's just completely given up on because they know neither party wants to do it at this point. Because I mean, there's no sense in it. They have not. They didn't. At this point, neither one of them care to even try. Because for starters, every time Hamas agreed to something, Israel would turn around and move the goalpost and throw in a whole bunch of other stuff that needed to be, accepted by them. And then, it just gets to the point where Hamas just, and then of course you have all the assassinations that have been happening. So yeah, of course they're going to turn around and be like, you know what, fuck this. We're not going to worry about it anymore. And Netanyahu didn't worry about it to begin with. Even though he keeps saying that and we'll get to that. Hold on, let's keep going. The U.S. was, the U.S. has some allies in the UN when it comes to Gaza, while a majority of member states have voted for resolutions that the U.S. has rejected. The U.K. has abstained from voting for those measures. Austria and the Czech Republic have joined the U.S. in voting against the resolutions. Jordan's King Abdullah II sharply highlighted how Israel has attacked UN shelters and schools in Gaza while the UN aid trucks have been unable to reach starving Palestinians. The unprecedented scale of terror unleashed on Gaza since October 7th is beyond any justification, he said. We will never accept the forced displacement of Palestinians, which is a war crime. Israel is no stranger to criticism at the United Nations. Its representatives have spent much of the past year attacking the institution as Israel and the U.S. appear increasingly isolated on the world stage. Thanks, Biden. Two resolutions call for a suspension of the fighting. Two resolutions calling for a suspension of the fighting passed on the general floor, 121 to 14. Meanwhile, 143 member states voted for a resolution to upgrade the Palestinian delegation's status at the UN, urging the Security Council to approve Palestinian leaders' request for full membership. In April, the Security Council voted 12 to 1 to recommend that it became a full leader, with the U.S. casting a veto, the sole no veto. And you see, that's the problem. That's the problem with the Security Council. All it takes is one veto. That's all it takes. One damn country could decide to be an asshole, and it doesn't matter what the issue is. It's just not going to go through, even though 12 others said yes. 12 to 1. Think about that for a second. 13 people on the Security Council. I think it's actually 14, right? But anyways, I guess somebody abstained or just didn't vote. Well, I don't know. But anyways, one can prevent something from going through. That's the problem. It's too easy for vetoing. There should I say a minimum of two. One is just ridiculous. That's like anybody can just be, an ass and just decide not to vote for something or to veto it. I mean, and nobody should have that amount of power. It should not be one sole state's country have enough power to prevent anything from happening. That's one thing that needs to be changed. Seriously, like I would say probably the most important thing that needs to be changed at the UN and the Security Council is the vetoing. It's just stupid. At this point, Israel has become accustomed to the frequent attacks by other member states. It will not be the last one. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danone, told reporters Tuesday. when asked about the king of Jordan's emotional attack, describing Israel as a peaceful nation. He said the country would prefer a diplomatic solution. Really? Really? The majority of the member states are clearly frustrated with the increasing violence in the region, especially as it has spread to Lebanon and threatens to lead to an all-out war. Many people come to the United Nations, hoping that the backdrop would be one of attempts to de-escalate. Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris told reporters Tuesday. Instead, we're seeing on an enormous hourly basis an escalation of the conflict. Very well put. It was just what's said to yesterday, I guess it was, or um, where they were talking. I can't remember if it was a U.S. Representative or whatever, somebody from the U.S. or what, talking about that the plan of escalating to de-escalate. What's currently going on between Israel and Lebanon and Hezbollah was to the idea was escalating to de-escalate. Who come up with that stupid excuse? You escalate to de-escalate. That's like an oxymoron, right? It certainly was a moron that said it. I mean, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. It's like we're going to send rockets your way and kill your people, and hope that you will be willing to chill out and let's come to an agreement, right? I'm gonna punch you in the face because I want us to get along. We have the Times of Israel here. Iran's president tells UN Israel's terrorism in Lebanon cannot go unanswered. Iran's president Masoud, yeah, uh, Pezeshkian. I think that's how his name I always probably mess up. In an address to the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, demanded a global response to Israel's assault on the Hezbollah terror group. Israel's state. Why did you do that? Israel's state terrorism in Lebanon cannot go unanswered, he said. Responsibility for all consequences will be borne by those governments who have thwarted 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 all global efforts to end this horrific catastrophe. They misspelled his name here. Pezeshkian. I don't know if they were trying to spell it like you say it, maybe? I don't know. Also accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, where he said it had been defeated, and of backing terrorist groups such as ISIS. The Iranian president's first address to the General Assembly came a day after he said that in a CNN interview that Hezbollah cannot stand alone against Israel and called on the international community to not allow Lebanon to become another Gaza. In response to a question on whether Iran would use its influence with Hezbollah to urge restraint. Shortly before he spoke at the UN General Assembly, a U.S. media report said Hezbollah asked its Iranian patrons to attack Israel as the Israel Defense Forces increased pressure on the Lebanese terror group over the past week, but so far Tehran has rebuffed the request. Two Israeli officials cited by the Axios news site said that the Iranians told Hezbollah that the timing isn't right for it to intervene because Pezeshkian, yeah, is in New York for the UNGA. which we just gone over. Hezbollah asked the Iranians to attack as part of its response to the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran 2 months ago, according to the officials and an unnamed Western diplomat. Israel has neither confirmed nor denied involvement in the assassination of Haniyeh. I just said that fine a minute ago. Haniyeh, who was killed in a guest house. We know that. Nevertheless, Iran. Okay. The sources said that the Iranians expressed reservation about joining the fight against Israel now and didn't give a positive response. Okay. Yeah, this is just going back in history there. This I wanted to get on to this part here. In this is like an addition. I don't know if this whatever. In his UN General Assembly address, Peninskin whatever lashed out at Israel over the Gaza war, saying the world was witnessed the true nature of the Israeli regime over the past year. It was witnessed now the regimes carry out atrocities in Gaza and how in 11 months it has murdered in cold blood over 41,000 innocent people, mostly women and children. Which, of course, they're naming out that it's citing unverified Hamas figures that make no differentiation between civilians and combatants. Which, I mean, yes, the 41,000 is just like a total number. And although that's not verified, that's an extremely conservative number. But it's like 70, at least 70, probably 75% women and children. Its leaders label this genocide, the killing of children, war crimes, and state terrorism, and legitimate self-defense. They label hospitals, kindergartens, and schools as legitimate military targets. They label the freedom-loving and brave people around the world who protest against their genocide as anti-Semitic. They label oppressed people who have stood up against 7 decades of occupation and humiliation as terrorists. He went on. It is Israel that has assassinated our scientists, diplomats, and even guests on our soil. When he's referring to Haniyeh, who was assassinated while in Tehran. Without proof that Israel supported both covertly and overtly terrorist groups like ISIS. We're not going to worry about that. Israel has been defeated in Gaza, and no amount of barbaric violence can restore its myth of invincibility. He called for a ceasefire in Gaza without mentioning the hostages held by Hamas and an end to the desperate barbarism of Israel in Lebanon before it engulfs the region of the world. Okay. Also sought to make the case for the Western world to shift its approach to the Islamic Republic, saying the country was prepared to foster meaningful economic, social, political, and security partnerships with global powers and its neighbors based on equal footing. The appropriate response to this message from Iran is not to oppose more sanctions, but to fulfill existing obligations to remove sanctions benefiting the Iranian people, hence laying the foundation for more constructive agreements. Now, this is where he's getting into the nuclear agreement that we had back in 2015, agreeing that it was the highest unprecedented level of nuclear oversight in return for recognition of our rights and the lifting of sanctions, which is what the deal was. For them to keep oversight over their nuclear program, not allowing them to process uranium and stuff over like a certain percent. I think it was around 25 or so, something like that. 20, 25, maybe 30, whatever. There's a down low enough for them to handle what they needed for energy and whatnot. But of course, keeping them from enriching to any kind of weaponry, which would still have to be like way on up in the 90s. But and in that gave them lifting sanctions on them and allowing them to their economy to get back on track with the money that was being held up that was theirs. Anyways, and of course, as we all know, Trump ripped that shit up because he's a dumbass. But here he continues. We are ready to engage with JCPOA participants if the commitments are implied fully and in good faith. Dialogue on other issues can follow. This is where he was bringing back up the idea of getting back into the agreement, which is what they've previously talked about, getting back into the agreement, uh, that they were open to it, which we should have already done. It's one other failure of Biden's is not doing that. Uh, then addressed his remarks to the American people. It is not Iran that has established military bases along your borders, imposed sanctions on your country, obstructed your trade relations with the world, prevent you from accessing medicine, restricting access to the global banking and financial system, targeted your military leaders. Rather, it is the United States that assassinated Iran's most revered military commander at the Baghdad airport, referring to Soleimani being assassinated in 2020, which Trump directed. So, um, look, he's making some points here. I'm not defending Iran. Iran's got some terrible history. Iran's done some really bad things domestically to their own people. Um, and, they have at times had some, you know, at least dabbling in some attempts for power around the region, right? Just put it mildly. But it's been very one thing is here is that the issue is Israel at the moment. As we see here, you know, Israel seems to have no problem being an enemy at the UN General Assembly. They are taking the hits. They accept the hits. They think that they are justified in everything that they're doing, when the rest of the world is looking at them and going, no. 121 to 14. 121 countries. Okay. For one, a resolution, 143 for another. This is what I'm talking about. Like, and this is bringing the United States down as well. We've had in recent days around 500 people, somewhere in the 400s, 400 to 500 people killed in Hezbollah. Now I'm sure that was including, militant members or whatever of Hezbollah, but it was also including innocent women and children and stuff, because the Israel has shot a barrage of missiles at Hezbollah, making contact on hundreds, like a matter of fact, I think like 400 different targets across southern Lebanon. And yes, in return, Hezbollah has shot off missiles. They have shot off a lot of missiles. But see, here's the issue. Here's my issue with Israel, is that they are constantly claiming that all these places are a threat to them. But yet they are the ones with the Iron Dome. They are the ones with a missile deterrent system that we helped them develop, and we help finance, and we help give them, artillery for and everything else. That is like 90 something percent effective, like high 90s effective at eliminating any threats before they get anywhere close to them. I mean, the only damage Hezbollah has done is literally stuff basically right over the border. I mean, nothing coming full on. Like Hezbollah, from what I understand, they haven't even shot anything directly towards Tel Aviv. Everything that they have attacked has been on the red line of, military installations and stuff within northern Israel. Israel's the one that has decided to make assassination shots, targets, now twice, further into Lebanon. And then, of course, the barrage, they shoot knowing that it's going to fall, knowing that it's going to do damage. Hundreds of missiles, knowing that it's going to do damage. Hezbollah shoots stuff knowing that it's more than likely not going to do damage. Now, they do have the arsenal that can break through, but they're not really shooting those yet. They've held all that back. But they're supposed to have artillery and stuff that actually can break through the defense. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to even attempt any of that stuff unless it's like they're really until they were actually either given permission by Iran or they just lose patience and decide to go rogue anyways, which is a possibility. But I mean, it's the only reason Hezbollah is even doing the shots and stuff is just because of a defense of Hamas, defense of Gaza, and that's what they've said from the beginning. If Israel would chill out on Gaza, and do a ceasefire, then they would stop shooting. And matter of fact, when they did do the ceasefire before, they did stop shooting. No missiles were were shot from Hezbollah. No, even from the Houthis, none were shot. So it's not like there's not precedent for that to be the case. While Israel claims that Hezbollah has nothing to do with Gaza, that their shots have nothing to do with it, there's no connection to it, that they're just doing it of their own free volition. And that's just not true. They have stated it, and it's been doing it from the beginning. In response. And continued response for what Israel has done in Gaza. And even with all that, with the escalation that they've been doing to Lebanon right now, they're still even doing the stuff in Gaza. Still, even this week, they're still continuing to hit schools and stuff that have been turned into shelters and whatnot. They're still dropping missiles and stuff on them. There's more kids and stuff being killed. Women and everything else, innocent people being killed in areas that were said to be safe, as they've done now for months, continuing over and over and over and over again. They're continuing to do their work in the West Bank as well. All their actions have been have been for their ultimate goal, and that is to broaden Israel, to annex all of it, annex Gaza, annex the West Bank. They and probably even attempt to annex and take over parts of Lebanon. They've already had members of the government talk about creating buffer zones, just like in Gaza, creating buffer zones over the Lebanon. You know what I'm talking about. Shit. Over the border in Lebanon, creating buffer zones, just like they've been talking and doing in Gaza, creating all the buffer zones all around. So what they're setting up the same strategic moves that they've made in Gaza. They're setting up the same stuff in Lebanon. They're already coming out with the, they're putting weapons in civilian homes, and they store them in there, using them as human shields, their uh, all that rhetoric, the same stuff that they have used on Gaza, they're using on Hezbollah in Lebanon. They're setting it all up, same playbook. So you can't help but be curious, and or that's their intention, is to just turn Lebanon into another Gaza. Uh, this is, and while the U.S. just continues to, we've done shipped more of our troops over there. There's over 40,000 there apparently already, and we're shipping more. And on all accounts, the idea is that we are going to wind up defending Israel, whatever they decide to do, whether they decide to do a full-on invasion or whatever. Apparently, we're just going to hold their hand because Biden isn't doing shit about it. This has been the just downright complete failure of Biden, and has completely ruined what he could have previously considered a decent presidency before October 7th. And now he has just continuously tarnished everything that he had previously done. Because clearly he truly is a Christian Zionist, I guess. He's said it several times. Apparently he truly was. I thought he, at first, a couple of times, I thought maybe he was just sort of like quoting, just misassociating or something. Clearly he really is. This is just ridiculous. I'm sick and tired of it. Something needs to happen. Something seriously needs to happen. And because we're just being tarnished by the whole thing on a global scale, on the global, scene. We're being tarnished for a whole completely different reason than what Trump tarnished us for. Anyways, but that's what's been going on. That's what happened today. A lot of backlash. A lot of backlash from all over the world. Unfortunately, though, there's not really. I mean, resolutions in the General Assembly are not. And there's no actual hold to that. It's just like it's just a gesture that is basically meaningless. I don't agree. I think it should be. I think a General Assembly actually should be like just like the Security Council. It should be a full on, it should hold weight. And the Security Council needs to be completely revised on the vetoing to where at minimal 2, I would even say 3, but at minimal 2, before something doesn't get passed. Anyways, yeah, let me know what you think about all this, what's going on, and I probably missed something. But it's this is like a day-to-day thing, and I'm not trying to like hit y'all day-to-day on this stuff. I'm trying to collect up a couple of days worth of information and give it to you in one big wallop. That's the reason why we're 30 minutes now into this. But yeah, that's just that's it's like I'm trying to keep up with all these things and then just
give it all to you at once. Uh, anyways, thank you very much. The next major thing we get, I'll try to get on here and update you on it. But thank you very much for your time. That's what's going on. Let me know what you think about the whole situation. What do you think about things that were discussed in the General Assembly today? What do you think about the stuff that Iran's president spoke of? The issues going on with the strikes and stuff, and or from Israel to Lebanon now. Uh, they're even talking about Lebanon not even being a state. They're not even considering Lebanon a state. It quite literally is a sovereign state, but yeah, Israel's acting like it's not. Um. Anyway, let me know what you think, and until next time, we've been ClearTalk. Thank you and peace. I'm out.